The market that injury law firms or lawyers of any kind are in at any given time is constantly changing, constantly evolving. And so one of the things I've really lived by that I heard at the beginning of last year at a conference in early 2024 is the right decision made 3 months late is still the wrong decision.
Sharp strategies, sweet success. Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Tiffany Swedinsky, and you're listening to Sharp Strategies, Sweet Success. I'm here with David Vicknair from Scott Vicknair. I worked with Scott Vicknair. They've been one of my fractional CMO clients for about 2 years now, which is crazy. And we've come a long way in those 2 years. And when I started bringing guests on my podcast, David was on the short list to get invited. So here we are. I'll introduce David a little bit just to say, like, he's an attorney that I've worked with, but he's a great business person and just really focused on building the law firm and growing the law firm. And in the last 2 years, I've seen him get his hands dirty, optimizing intake, bringing on new team members, and it just feels like the company is just growing super rapidly. And most of that certainly is David. Almost all of it, if you're being honest. But that's my introduction to David. I'll turn it over to him and let him say a few words about himself.
Well, that means a lot coming from you, Tiffany. You know I hate talking about myself, so hearing you say that makes me cringe a little bit. But thanks so much for having me. Obviously, we've loved having you for nearly 2 years now, be a part of our team. And hearing you say that did kind of hit me. It's crazy to think that we've been working together now for 2 years, and it's been pretty seamless and funny now that you pretty much know exactly how everything works and how I'm going to respond to things and what my answer is going to be 99% of the time on different things. And that's the neat thing about professionally working with somebody, I think, is you get to really know them both from a personal and professional standpoint. And that's great, right? Because it just makes things quicker, which growth and success and efficiencies, I think, are all dependent upon is how do we get to A to B quicker and in as efficient of a way possible, which is one of the things that you're just excellent at and have really helped us optimize as a big piece of everything that we do here. We have as you mentioned, a personal injury firm down here in New Orleans and Southeast Louisiana. We have experienced a ton of growth since we decided to take my practice and hyper focus it on injury 2 or 2.5 years ago and really reinvest capital at a responsible but very healthy rate that we hadn't for the first 6 years that I was really in practice on my own. I've been on my own for about 9 years now. And as a result of that reinvestment, not only in marketing, but also in our culture and our people and our team and our processes and systems, we've seen a ton of growth and a lot of success, a lot of problems too. But every problem's an opportunity to grow and learn from. So it's been a lot. It's been a fun ride. I look forward to many more years of working with you.
Well, I really appreciate that. And not to butter your bread too much, because we promised we wouldn't do that before we started the podcast. But you're a really great lawyer to work with from a fractional CMO perspective, because you're really focused on what I'm focused on, which is just implementing marketing. And so many of the law firms that I talk to who are struggling just really seem to struggle to get there, like to implement marketing and to launch it. How would you say, what's the mindset that you're in there as far as how to get marketing off the ground? What do you do? What makes you so good at implementing or helping to implement marketing?
Well, it's kind of you to say that. I think I'm not that good at it. I think one of the reasons I've gotten better at it is that I'm consistently hard on myself and introspective from the standpoint of constantly learning. And I think that lawyers, by and large, have a bit of an ego. We all have egos, whether you're a lawyer or not. The first step is recognizing we all have egos and then having the emotional intelligence to manage our egos, which immediately turns me to you need to be constantly learning. The market that injury law firms or lawyers of any kind are in at any given time is constantly changing, constantly evolving. And so one of the things I've really lived by that I heard at the beginning of last year at a conference in early 2024 is the right decision made 3 months late is still the wrong decision. I said that on another podcast that I was on the day. And that one really I'm just going to credit it to who deserves the credit, which is John Nachazel at Mike Morse's law firm. And that one stopped me in my track because it really highlighted to me the plight of many lawyers who we are over analytical thinkers. We want to dice and slice and dissect every piece of everything. And it's like, look, it's okay to think on big decisions. Like if you have a 5, 10, $15,000, maybe more expense line item in your marketing budget and it's a big decision, it's okay to mull on that for a little while and have a bourbon, do what it is, whatever your process is to think through things and make a decision, sleep on it for a couple nights, but eventually just make a freaking decision and move on. Like if it's the wrong decision, so what? At the end of the day, the wrong mindset that I used to have, which is like, I will waste this 5 or $10,000 and I'll never get it back. But if you flip that thinking and say, hey, I'm going to take my marketing spend at the end of the year and divide it by the amount of cases that I acquired and look at my case acquisition costs. And it's a reasonable rate for the market that you're in, irrespective of what practice you're in or industry you're in, really. Then you didn't lose that money. It just became one of the pieces of your marketing initiative that didn't actually work, that you won't do again, but you learned some lessons from it. And it still didn't necessarily impact your overall financial commitment and reinvestment into marketing in the long term when you look at it over the entire year.
I don't think it's unique to lawyers, but everyone has paralysis analysis where, we want more data. Like everyone wants more data to make a decision, but as leaders, like you will never have enough data to make like 100% foolproof decision. And when we're talking about marketing, the question of, oh, do we invest in Facebook or do we invest in Google? I just don't, I like your mindset because, with you, it's not a question of which one. It's like, why don't we do both? And then the hard part becomes like, how do we do both at the same time? How do we grow both at the same time? And so I think it's important for a lot of people, a lot of business owners to just do the marketing, just implement the marketing because you get a return on it, hopefully, if you're doing it well enough. And otherwise, you're just kind of stuck and not doing much. You're just not finishing the marketing. You're not implementing the marketing. And if you're not implementing marketing, then you're not getting new cases. So
Yeah,
that's
I think it's you're right, Tiffany, but I also think it's twofold. It's like on the one side, the marketing is the simpler part and like fixing your mindset to commit to it, right? That's one piece of it, no doubt. And I kind of like to think sometimes that a lot of the stuff we're doing in the firm that's not brand marketing. When I say brand, I would mean like TV, radio, or billboard. Like if it's not brand marketing, because brand marketing is generally way more expensive. And so you've got to have a strategy for your market. And in my humble opinion, I don't think you do I think you do the opposite of what most ass backwards lawyers do, which is they're like, I have to dump a bunch of money in TV or radio or billboards because that's what all the successful lawyers do. And I just think that's a really dumb strategy. And I've watched like a ton of lawyers in the 13 years I've been in practice do that and not have success and be like, I wonder why it didn't work for me. I go it from the reverse school of thought, which is like build your foundational marketing, your systems for your list, your print marketing, the things that you can afford when you don't have as big of a marketing budget and begin to deliver excellent hospitality and results to each of your clients who then become your word of mouth engine. They go out there and they talk about you. And so that's like on the one side of marketing, but I think it's more complicated than that because the second part of it, in my humble opinion, is that you also have to be committed to dealing with growth, which means that you have to be okay with the financial risk of hiring more people and the associated responsibility of training and developing more people and having that holistic commitment to building a culture, a team that can grow, that can be supported, because you can't really have one without the other. Like if you get a bunch of new cases, but you don't do a good job with those clients, it's going to have the reverse effect.
you got to hire people almost before you're ready to hire them. And it's such a risky move as a business owner. And I've done this now twice where you hire somebody because you need help, but you're just like, is it going to make sense in the long run? And in my experience, it usually does because you have the extra help, you have more people to implement, but it's so hard. And it's particularly hard when you're not a lawyer and you're managing marketing folks because it's typically different than like managing paralegals or managing other lawyers. And so like it's a double fold kind of, or it's a double-edged sword, because hiring sucks, or it's at least it's hard. And then training them and managing them is just kind of extra on your plate.
Well, here's the good news with that, though, I will say, and this is coming from somebody who's made every mistake possible as it relates to hiring, firing, thinking they were good at hiring, realizing that life has a good way of humbling you and telling you you're not worth a crap at hiring, is it becomes a lot easier the more you grow. And I think that's honestly the way that a growing business trajectory is supposed to be, because it's supposed to teach the owner a lot of hard lessons so that when the decisions become bigger and bigger, they're not that challenging or insurmountable feeling because you just been there and you done that. So I guess I would say the good news is that pain that you feel at the beginning and all the mistakes you make at the beginning ultimately is the foundation for enabling you to be a better leader and make better decisions down the line as you grow.
What is, as far as hiring, like what is like a lesson that you've learned or a mistake that you made that you think could help other people?
Yeah. So I hate to do it, but it's all straight back to cliches. They're cliches for a reason because they have stood the test of time. Hire slow, fire fast. It's just, that's a primary one. Like, made tons of mistakes where it's like, I got to put somebody in the seat, and you rush to hire somebody, and then it becomes a debacle of they're there for 2 or 3 months and they're right out the door because they're not a culture fit. There are HR issues immediately, which are never going to get better, by the way. If you have a problem with somebody in the first 90 days, like, it's never getting better from there. It's like the joke that old lawyers make about a case. The best the case ever looks is the day it walks in the door, and then you start to find all the problems the longer you work on it. It is true. You should be very reticent, even if you have an empty seat to fill a position. You should delay it as long as you can to find the right candidate. Now, look, you have a rock star who comes in the first week of interviews and goes through your entire protocol and is like fantastic. Hire him. Like, don't let him linger and don't miss out on him. But most of the time, you will get a better candidate by being patient and letting the interview and hiring process play out, and not just jumping at the first person that you think would be okay.
And I see a lot of people doing that. You know, if they tick all the boxes and they're okay, but kind of weird, like you bring them on, but you always find like it was too eager to hire.
I've made that mistake many times. And we try not to do that at all anymore. And in fact, luckily, another benefit of growing is the bigger you get, the more you can sustain or deal with an empty chair for a bit by other people just kind of taking on a little bit of that load to still deliver the type of service and results that you want to do to each of your particular clients. But it is a mistake. And the cost associated with removing that person and then adding a new person is so much larger than you realize, in efficiencies and slowing you down and emotional waste. It's impossible to quantify, but I would say in any size law firm, it's in the tens of thousands of dollars in revenue at least. And so when you start to really think like, hey, if I put the wrong person in the seat, it's going to cost me between 15 to $30,000 in money that I can't really exactly quantify. I think it will help you go through the mental exercise of wait and get the right candidate, and a candidate that you're excited about. That's the key. Like, if everybody involved in the interview process and you have different protocols put in place for hiring is excited about this candidate because they think they fit the culture, they're great, everything's like great, and it's not just like, oh, they can do the job. That's typically, from my experience at least, when you're dealing with, hey, I have the right fit for my organization.
So you go to a lot of conferences. I don't go to that many, but been to a lot of conferences. And you talk to a lot of lawyers. What would you say is like the biggest mistake that a lot of these other law firms are making when it comes to, and it doesn't even have to be about marketing. It could be growing their business. What do you think that they're doing that they can fix?
That's easy. I call it, or a lot of people have called it, and I call it now shiny object syndrome. It's the new thing. So right now we're dealing with AI, and don't get me wrong, I love AI. I'm a big proponent of it. One of my quarterly goals right now is for me to implement it into different pieces of the firm. But personal injury lawyers or something, we have this proclivity to say, "Oh, my problems will be fixed by AI." No, 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 no. And we always are looking for that next thing to make it like easier or more like that is like a recipe for disaster. Like, there's nothing which will substitute for execution and hard work and doing everything that you possibly can for delivering a great experience to each of the particular clients that you're lucky enough to have. Because ultimately, for your listeners who like books, go read Jim Collins' Good to Great. It's just like a flywheel. The flywheel effect is the more people that you put in your marketing list and the more people that you put in your, whether it's an attorney, a medical clinic, if you're in injury, a past client, a future client, a current client, whoever you can get in that list, as you grow that list and you send them holiday cards, you send them magnets, you send them newsletters, you stay in front of them. If you deliver an excellent result to them and give them great hospitality, notice I didn't say service, but hospitality, if you really deliver that to them, then they will recommend, you'll be shocked at the amount of people that they will refer over to you. And that is just word of mouth referrals. I like to think of it like a restaurant. You go into that restaurant that's just opened and it wows you. You want to go out and tell other people in casual conversation about this new restaurant you went to. That's a big thing in New Orleans because we always have new restaurants opening. You want to talk about the food. You want to talk about the service. Oh, and it looked like this inside. And before you know it, they're talking about it, and the restaurant gets buzz, and that drives customers and clients to the restaurant. A law firm's a restaurant. It's really no different. And lawyers don't think about it like that, and it's just a mistake, in my humble opinion.
I don't know if I've ever heard it compared to a restaurant. I often compare it to doctors' offices, but I mean, when it comes down to it, it's a business like any other. And even with my marketing agency here, there are a lot of parallels in terms of what I do and the problems I experience to what lawyers do and the problems they experience, except the legal.
I honestly, I think everybody's sick of me saying it over here, which is like we're a sports team. We're a football team, which moonlights as a restaurant. And so I'm the head coach, and I have a bunch of assistant coaches, my COO, our attorney pod leaders, Paige, who you know is our director of case evaluation, you, who's our CMO. Like we have a bunch of assistant coaches who are then coaching our position players on the team. But we're not only like a team, we're also a restaurant. That's how I think about the law firm.
That's really abstract, and I kind of love it.
Yeah.
So who are you rooting for this Sunday? I don't know if this podcast will air before the Super Bowl, but I'm just straight up curious now.
It's really hard to root for either team. Philadelphia fans are the worst. And who really wants the Chiefs to win again? Um,
Look,
you
we're
have
going
much
for a
more.
three-peat.
We have much more of a national audience than the podcast down here. We've been taking some pot shots at Eagles fans and the Chiefs, but you know, unfortunately, I like most of the players on the Eagles. I like Hurts. I think their running game is fantastic. They both have good defenses. I can't root against Kansas City. I've been proven many times that I've rooted against them, so I'm picking them 34-24. But in my ideal world, I want the Saints to win.
Well, they're not even there.
I know, but I'm just pretending that they are too. All right.
Yeah.
The Saints are playing this Sunday. We're gonna win our second Super Bowl.
Oh, okay. Okay. Um, I remember when the Saints won their first Super Bowl. It was a party because that was like, yeah, it was
It
nuts.
was pretty awesome.
So, of all the marketing that we've done in the last like year, let's just say the last year because we've done quite a lot this year. Like, what was your favorite, just your personal favorite, and what one do you think was the most successful? I mean, we could actually look up the most successful numbers, but I want your impression.
All right, so my personal favorite has got to be our television commercials just because they're fun. And more importantly, I have a close relationship with my mom, and my mom is in a lot of the TV advertisements. And man, I don't know how else to say it except it's just been fun. It's been fun to see her be on like this journey with me. She's always recognized and like probably more likable than me from the television commercial standpoint. And everybody's like really wants to meet her. And I get all the time now, like, bring your mom. We want to see your mom. Literally a email from a lawyer a week ago about a pro bono event here, and he's like, make sure your mom comes. And so that's been just a lot of fun to be able to get the ability to spend that time with my mom. My mom's 73 now. I'm 39. And so I think about like how much time do we have together, and being able to do that with her, and we just had a good time. And we go to lunch after the commercial shoot sometimes. So it's definitely been my favorite. Most effective, that's a tough question because when you say efficacy, do you mean what is something you can track that leads to the lowest conversion rate or cost per client? Like, what do you mean by effective?
What do you think has just gotten us the overall most cases?
That's also complicated. I would say it is a mix of both investment and commitment to SEO along with television because I used to think that you could effectively grow with good SEO without brand recognition, and that was incorrect thinking, and that brand marketing is like if you have good SEO and you've built good SEO and you have good ongoing SEO and you're really committing to SEO, that brand marketing can be like the lighter fuel that you dump on the embers of a small fire of SEO and really explode it because once again, like you can be in the top three in the local map, you can show up organically on page one of Google, but if people don't recognize you and associate with your brand, that doesn't mean they're going to freaking click on you. And so the question becomes, how do you get them to click on you and call you? And I think the answer to that is to have a brand that everybody knows, recognize, and trusts.
I think in a lot of ways, brand marketing has come back and largely replaced search engine optimization because so many people are focusing on multi channels. And it's not just Google anymore, it's Google, Facebook, TikTok. And a lot of times, if you're not showing up in all of these places, you're not really showing up in any of them.
Yeah.
And just having a lot of marketing assets and a lot of places where you post online and even commercials, radio, all the brand marketing that we do. It's again, it's like the new search engine optimization. We're not just hacking a website though. We're kind of hacking a brand. At least that's my take on it.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Tiffany, but I also have been thinking for the last couple weeks. I caught an episode of the Diary of a CEO podcast. The podcast was going on. It was like this. I really saw some clips of the show, which would show you the power of clipping your podcast and putting it out there, and that made me interested in wanting to listen to it. So I like got a reverse example of how what we do at the law firm is hopefully funneling people in our podcast. And I just followed the show notes and went listen to the pieces I wanted to listen to, and what I came away with was 7-Eleven 4. And this guy was talking about how we have folders in all of our brains that we can remember brands. And from a marketing world, you want to think about it like this. And he's like, people need to digest 7 hours of your content 11 different times on 4 different mediums until they can feel like they know you. And the example that he used, this was like an aha moment for me. The example he used was George Clooney. We all feel like we know George Clooney, or we immediately associate with who he is in his brain because we've seen him on movies, we've seen him on the news, we've seen him on social media, we've seen him in print. Like you can go through all the different channels you've seen him on. You've seen him at least you've digested 7 hours of his content, which I have through all the Ocean's 11 movies. And then you've seen him 11 times on 4 different mediums. So you feel like you know him. That's like the magic psychological number when you kind of associate with the brand. And so the point was that we have to be focused on putting out content so that if somebody wants to spend 7 hours learning about you, they can go online and learn about you, which also highlights something that we all probably overlook, which is, hello, YouTube. And so growing companies, this guy's point was, are those that continue to put content out that their potential clients and customers can go and spend 7 hours learning about them. And typically companies who don't have that amount of content out there for people to learn about them for 7 hours are not growing. And so, yeah, I think we get in the weeds sometimes, and it's okay. Like we want to analyze the data and understand, is this marketing funnel working? Is that channel working? How is my LSA performing? Like you have to manage all those things and look at them on a day-to-day basis to catch problems. We just caught one, as you know, yesterday evening that we're working on right now in our LSA account. But at the end of the day, it's like take your marketing budget, divide it by your signed cases, and if you add a decent acquisition cost, just get over it.
And I selfishly wish most lawyers, because I'm a marketer and I like it when they spend money.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, it's like, hey, Tiffany, go get me more cases, but I don't want to spend any money. That's going to be complicated, but also require some investment from the owner because there's really only one route for that, which is referral. And you got to have some boots on the ground to go and generate the referrals. So yeah,
or it's social media content. We can do
there.
social media content for free, but surprise, surprise, it's not super valuable unless it's a person behind the camera. And you mentioned AI earlier, and I feel like a lot of law firms are rushing to AI because we can create AI personas, make those into videos, so we don't have to get behind the camera. But time and time again, when those are tested, actual videos tend to perform better. They're more engaging. And like your videos, what you do on TikTok, which I still love, is the pizza reviews. Like you can't simulate that. You can't fake that. And yet, like it's been one of the things that people time and time again say is I love the pizza reviews. I love the pizza reviews. Like you're behind the camera yourself quite a lot. Can you offer any tips to attorneys who are wanting to do more video but are hesitant or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just going back real quick, I would say that even social media is not free. I mean, there's labor costs associated with putting good content online that doesn't make your brand look terrible and non-serious. So if you want to do social media, which is a great channel, and you should, we all should. I mean, there's a reason Coca-Cola, Nike named the brand, invest heavily in free content being online is because it's furthering their brand. You still have to invest in labor and in team members to make quality video and edit quality video and get it up there. So nothing's free from a marketing perspective except good old word of mouth and referral marketing. But yeah, as far as getting in front of videos, you just have to schedule the time to do it. And one thing that's really kind of worked well for us now is that our marketing coordinator, who's fantastic, there's a shout out to you, Miles. He came from a video and photography background. And so he's very adept and comfortable with all of our equipment, which makes it really easy on me as the owner that I can just show up. He gives me some topics and then he takes care of all the tech stuff, which is like a lot of would make me feel anxious because I'm like, I don't know what to do with all this stuff. And yeah, sometimes we flip the phone. I'll just do a quick vlog and video, and we put those up once or twice a week. And that's great. That's good. But like, it also, I think, is good to have a mix of authentic content, which is just you behind your phone or your team filming you on an iPhone or something like that, and some produced content. Which, if you have somebody in house who is really adept at doing that, makes it so much easier to consistently record. It's almost like the best way I could explain it is my trainer makes me accountable to actually show up to the gym 4 days a week, otherwise I'd like to not show up. Well,
Mhm.
like, if you have a marketing team member who is really good with that technology and schedules you once a week, there's, like, this accountability built in for you, like, "Hey, we're doing this content once a week at the scheduled time."
Yeah. You're paying the employee for that specific skill, you better use it. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
I think that's all the questions I had, and we're kind of at the kind of coming up on the end of it. Did you have anything that we wanted to go over that we didn't?
I'll give you a shout out. I want to make sure everybody who's interested in working with you works with you because you've got a great marketing mind and you have a lot of technical expertise, which is hard to find as far as integrations, whether it be with Zapier and other different things that track things, and are integral pieces of technology to help data management and things run from a marketing perspective. And so it's just been a really great experience for Brad and I to be working for you with you, not for you, the last 2 years, and we look forward to working with you a lot more in the future.
I really appreciate it. I love working with you guys too. Your meetings are good.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to chat with you about marketing.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to chat with you too. This is our first meeting for this week, so I'll see you on Thursday. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. So I'll just say, like, if you want to check out any of the commercials that Scott Vicknair has done, they're all on YouTube. If you Google or YouTube Scott Vicknair, you'll find them. I highly recommend it. I sing Scott Vicknair, injury attorneys will fight for the win. Every time
We
I think
fight for the win. That's the only one. The only thing we fight for, Tiffany, is the
we
win.
only fight for the win. Yeah. Um, and Oh yeah, so I just really recommend checking them out. They're really funny. And we post all of them on YouTube. And also David has his own podcast, Overruled. I think you can find out about it on overruledpodcast.com. Any place else they should go to check you out?
No, I think that's it. ScottVignair.com. We have all of our podcasts, a lot of our pizza reviews up there. We're also now in king cake season because it's Mardi Gras time in New Orleans. So we shift from pizza reviews to king cake reviews for a month and a half. Like, I didn't have my calorie count necessary anymore from the pizza. Now it's even worse because of all the king cake that we eat in this month and a half period. But yeah, check us out at ScottVignair.com, as well as our podcasts all up there, and our YouTube page has everything up on it too.
Well, thank you so much, David. I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks everyone for listening.